Hello guys and welcome to our channel. Welcome to this new video. So today we are pleased to release another map that we've been working on. This time to take you to a time travel that is actually pretty paradoxal as we take you from the present to the future to discover a castle from the 13th century that is currently being built but is not yet finished to be built. And of course, on our map, we have finished it. So technically, we go from the present to the future. It's weird enough, right? It's a bit strange. But we could not resist to build this one castle using medieval engineer as we take advantage of it to tell you about the unique adventure that is currently happening in a small territory and forest in France. And that is named The Adventure of Guédelon and the Castle of Guédelon. And we'd like to take advantage of this short video as an excuse to speak about a revolution that happened during the Middle Age, during the 13th, about ways to build castles and medieval architecture. So let's go back to Guédelon. What is this crazy adventure? And what is this crazy dream? It's a dream of one guy, a guy named Michel Guillot, that has currently decided to build a castle using the methods of the Middle Age and the 13th century. But let's go back a bit in the past to understand where all this came from. Long ago, some time ago, let's say, Michel Guillot and his brother decided to purchase a castle in France that was named Saint-Fargeau. It's not actually the castle that you can see in this map, it's another one. I put some picture in post-production. The castle of Saint-Fargeau was in pretty bad shape, and to restore it, to renovate it, Michel Guillot came with the idea to set a sort of unbelievable, extraordinary show covering like 1,000 years of history from Middle Age to modern times, with over 600 performers, 16 knights, vehicles, firecracks, special effects, light effects, anything crazy you can imagine. And it has been a great success. Many people came to see this show and discover Saint-Fargeau. And thanks to this big show that you may find some picture on some image on YouTube if you'd like to have a test of it or just come and visit it if you go to France. Thanks to this big show and these events and all this buzz is creating around like Saint-Fargeau, Michel Guillot succeeded in financing the restoration and the maintenance of this castle, because as you may know, the castle is very expensive to maintain. And when doing all this work, Michel Guillot at a certain point discovered with his architect that there was another castle below the castle of Saint-Fargeau. And so they start to work on the map and the plan of this castle, discover that it was from the 13th century. And it's pretty frequent that castles were being built again on a location where other castles were being destroyed, and all along the history, locations were not changing a lot, but castles were being rebuilt on top of other ones. And then from this idea, Michel Guillot got this dream to say, hey, why won't we try to build this castle or something looking like this castle, but using only, of course, methods from Middle Age. Got no modern tools, no engines, electric engines and stuff. Only people, and doing it like during the Middle Age they were doing it, finding a location where we can extract some stone and some woods. And he started to surround himself with an architect, an historian, and then they set a project and start to go with this project around, find some financer, some investors, knock at some doors, and actually some doors open. So in 1997, they put the first stone of Guédelon. And now, for 20 years, since 95, they are building Guédelon. It's meant to take another 10 years to be finished, and then probably they will do some other things around it. There is actually 50 to 60 workers working daily to make it. All the job and trade you may imagine that are required to build a castle during Middle Age are in Guedelon. on the site itself, on the location here, on the place, and there is also 300 volunteers a year. So imagine like I tell you, like stonemason, blacksmiths, basket makers, rope makers, carpenter, lumberjack, anything, like all the work around the blacksmithing are here. And then you have around the castle all these people working all day long to try to find again and to retrieve all the techniques from this period of time. And you have to understand that most of them, or many of them, have been lost. So they have to rediscover all of them, and they have to reinvent all of them. Normally, a such castle during the Middle Age will take 10 years to be built by the specialists and the medieval engineers of Middle Age. Now it's taking like about 30 years because we have to retrieve and to reinvent and to recreate. And Guédelon, from an historical, archaeological, human point of view, is a total unbelievable adventure that is happening on daily basis. Really like something incredible, a total miracle. You have some people that are working now like from 15 years. Like I was listening an interview from a guy that was here from 27 to 40. He has spent like almost the last 13 years in the Middle Age. No vehicles, no cars, nothing. He's living here, and he's working here like a colleague of him would have lived like 800 years ago. So Guédelon is crazy. It's a crazy, fabulous adventure. And we are really pleased to have been able to release this castle, right? It's surrounded by a huge forest and plenty of oaks and trees. There are many workshops around it, like all the work and job. Like they do like some demo of the work and they explain you how they extract the stone, how they carve it, how they work the wood and all this. So all around the castle you have like many workshops. We didn't reproduce them because we want to do like a castle siege. But you have to imagine this is like a small, like a park, but it's much more ambitious than a park, You're going to have fun for sure, but you're going to do a very big time travel, like an extraordinary time travel if you visit Guédelon. So here is about this castle. Really, we are really pleased to have been able to build it, though of course we have to adapt it and we have to do what we can with the blocks. It's pretty close from the original model, with some differences, of course. When building Guédelon, it was important for Michel Guillot and his team to find some realistic historical ground to make it. So the idea is that Guédelon is being built by a small lord, like average lord, like not someone that is having like so much power, that just get the authorization in 1229 from the kings of France to build his own castle. So it will be like a small average castle, like more for make it a living. It's not a big fortress for a garrison and many militaries. He will have his familiars, his soldiers, his people. But though it has his defense mechanism as a normal castle, it's not a huge size castle. As being based on the 13th century, Michel Guillot has decided to make it like a typical example of what is named Philippian Architecture. And I'm very pleased to take advantage of this video to tell you about that, because the image we all have in mind, about this castle with towers on each angles, is coming from Philippe Auguste, a French king from the 12th, 13th century, that built the Louvre with his worker and inaugurate or invent or set like a total new system of architecture for castles with these square walls and towers at each angles. At first, the dungeon was at the center, then later on the standard of this architecture, the dungeon has been set as another tower that we call main tower or steel dungeon. The lord may live in the dungeon when there is no lord house. In the Guédelon case, they made a lord house. It's almost finished, by the way. And then in Guédelon, there will be another big tower, average tower, and you see on the back on the left, which will be the chapel. As being built from a small lord and not with a big power, there will not be a jail inside Guédelon. There will not be moat. They won't change the course of a river, but they will just have a dry moat like this. And here it is. So the Philippian architecture, like to tell you about a bit more about it, like change the way to picture the ways building can defend themselves, but can also defend a territory. As before this type of architecture, the building were meant to be organizing, to say it like this, passive defense. I mean, they were being built on elevation, and if attackers would like to fight on this territory, they have to climb and get the castle on his elevation, whereas the attacker will use mainly these strengths of the elevation to defend the building and the territory. With the Philippian architecture, of course, if there is an elevation, you're going to find like if there is a hill, the castle is going to be built on the hill, but it's not specifically required. And due to his own defense mechanism and his openness to all angles, is able to defend all the territory around it, the castle from the Philippian architecture can be set in lowlands and in plains, and then defend actively all the territory around it by his position and opposing his strengths, his stone, and his defense mechanism to any potential attackers. And defenders can, inside the castle, due to his structure, his wall, his towers, and so, actively defend the castles against any attackers. So really we have a system that changed the architecture and the way to picture building defense and territory defense from passive to active. And this is a revolution in military strategy meant to be done under Philip Auguste. He has been copied later on in Europe, like Edward from England is meant to have taken inspiration from the castle from Philip Auguste. He's really a famous king to have done this sort of renacimiento, they say as well, like I say revolution or change in the medieval architecture. So I was really thinking it was important to know, because we picture castle, easy castle, the same way as if it was coming from nowhere. Actually not. Before the 13th century, it was not so obvious. We don't know if they've been rediscovering some old writing from Romans, or if some new ancient siege got them to change and push them forward to invent this architecture. There are various hypotheses, but as a matter of fact, Guédelon is a big symbol and a total model of the Philippian architecture. As you may have noticed, Guédelon is not perfectly square from the top. It's a bit more of a trapeze. But we don't have the blocks in medieval engineering yet to make such a diagonal, so we had to adapt the construction. In any case, it's staying a perfect example of the architecture from Philip Auguste, with his dungeon, as I said, that has been put in the late stage of the Philippian architecture from the center of the building to one of the corners, and on the left over there with his chapel tower. And by the way, if you go to their website, I believe like this year is the 1 year where they are building the chapel. So if you like to see some pictures, you can go there and check. So here is the Lord House. It's pretty finished, as I was saying, in Guédelon. We've been trying to reproduce it as it stands. It's beautiful chimneys. There is an oven inside the chimney, and this is like it is in Guédelon. It's this way. We've been using this area that is more like of the ceiling and the kitchen, and so to put the Lord statues, because we cannot put it on the first stair anyway. And on the castle siege, we need to have one. We had to do like doors everywhere, like so. This time, we made the effort like to do doors everywhere, because we don't want to do castle siege with engine siege for the defenders, because it's pretty rare. I think like the building itself and the way that obstacles are being set all the way should be enough to stop attackers. Here is the well. It's exactly the same location in Guédelon. It's a bit smaller in Guédelon, but that is doing the job. Over there near the wall, I really want to show you a small door. that was being found in many castles at the period of time, and I love this because it's like a sort of back way, for defenders under siege to escape or to open and to have one messenger being sent away, like to ask for reinforcements, or maybe an elite troop that can go out using it during the night to put the mess in the in the attackers' camps and so. So I love these little doors, and it's standing as it is in Guédelon. There is 2 defense mechanism and doors in Guédelon, so we made 2 of them as well. Of course, we have to use the Medial Engineer engine, so the doors we made are certainly different. And there is this little system I love about this door. Like, if you go here, you'll find out a sort of small windows that in the real map is more of a narrow slit, allowing you to shoot any attackers that will reach to succeed in breaking the small doors and climbing the stair. Super happy to have succeeded. You can still wait for them with crossbows and shoot their head like from these little windows. I find it very ingenious. It's really the idea of the Philippian castle is to set obstacles all the way long, even though the attackers has penetrated the courtyard. You set like obstacles absolutely all the way long. All the towers are being secured. There are strong doors up and down. And I mean, until the last hope, you can resist, And it's the way we like our castle siege map to be. Exactly like that. So this door, we will reproduce it exactly as we could, using the medieval engineer block. Actually, on the real map, it's a bit smaller. There is only 3 stairs to access from the doors to the ground. But we have to compose and to use, of course, the blocks. You know how it is. There is no half blocks, so in the reality, they are like third of blocks, quarter of block. In Medial Engineer, you have to use 1 block, or you use less 1 block, or you use 0 block, So once you get there, you have some walls that are probably a bit longer sometime, or they will be smaller. You have to make decision. Arrow slits, we have to talk about that because it's a it's a very important component of the architecture during Philippe Auguste. Those are those windows that are especially for crossbows and arrows. We had to simulate them. We didn't want to put just windows or door at this level. It will be scandalous somewhere because we needed to have this sort of arrow slits effect. So we've been using wood to cover them. Of course, arrow slits are never of wood, but are made of stone. And they are studied to have a little thin overture, like it's not so open, but from there, if you have a crossbow, you can really shoot, and no one will see where it's coming from and how fast it comes. It's very, very powerful, Here we have like some interrogation, something we wonder on the original map. There is a sort of windows on the original map. To be honest, we are not quite sure. It could be like a Bractis or Bretèche, which are both balconies in stone with vertical hole from where you can launch things on attackers vertically, which are technically exactly the same than in matriculation, except the matriculation is on top of the towers, and the same as well as the hoardings. But as we are sure that on the dungeon of Guédelon there is a Bretèche, a Bractis, we've been deciding to do one as well at this location with the excuse to show you the way those mechanism of defense works and the good angle they can give you on the feet of the walls. Though, again, magically Bractis and Bretèche are totally in stone and absolutely never in wood. What's in woods is named hoardings. And we have one that is normally planned on top of the Guedelon dungeon for when the castle will be finished. See from there the beautiful angle and visibility and view you have on the feet of the wall. Imagine with a crossbow or anything heavy or boil oil or anything funny you may have handy. You can be pretty efficient with such a mechanism. Over the year, hoarding has been replaced at the end of the 13th gradually by a matriculation for one simple reason. The siege engines become stronger, and though they were putting some moist leather and anything they could on the wood of the hoardings, they were not so resistant, whereas matriculation were in stone. So gradually hoardings disappeared to let matriculation take over the defense mechanism on top of the towers. So in Guédelon, we have a hoarding on top of the dungeon, but we could not make it because we don't have the blocks, and as they are all curved and all in wood, to be honest, even trying, we cannot get to the point. Again, we have to adapt sometime with medieval engineer, but it's just fine. We always get to illustrate a principle and share what was really this castle's defense at this period of time. So here we go, the top of the tower. Yeah, we have like more of a crenel system. I show you some picture. Many of the top of the towers during the Middle Age are not like windows as we made, and they are not totally crenels. If we use crenels, we cannot put a roof on top of them, but it's the way they look like actually. It's like on top of each defense installation or towers, you find some sort of small overtures, smaller than the windows you can see actually, and half of the size of it, half of the height, and the roof looks to be put directly on top of it. So in this case, we have to adapt again and to think about the idea. That is the main idea is to have like point of view everywhere around, to be able to shoot and to have a decent defense. So it's covering exactly the same feature at the end. It's the same at the defense point of view, but aesthetically it's a bit different. So we just wanted to mention it. So here we go. I think we pretty much make the whole tour we'd like to make for today, and we hope you enjoy it. We thank you very much for your presence. We hope you enjoy this little time travel again. We love to take advantage and excuses of medieval engineer to investigate history. And we thank you very much for watching. Any comments, again, any like, subscribe, welcome. Visit Guedelon if you have the opportunity. At least go to their websites to find more about this crazy adventure from a crazy dreamer. And it's the way the world is moved, right, with passion. And we are really happy today to get you to discover Guedelon in case you didn't know it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Thanks again. Have a great day. Enjoy life and have fun. Cheers.